wanted the best? You've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com, thechrisvossshow.com. Welcome to the big show, my family and friends. We certainly appreciate you guys having us over into your earbuds, those ears that you have that bring in all the sound and the wonderfulness of the Chris Voss Show, the Chris Voss Show family that loves you but doesn't judge you. As always, we have the most smartest authors, brilliant minds on the show for 15 years, 3 to 4 shows a day, 10 to 15, 20 shows a week. We bring you some of the most amazing minds and authors, and then just little me with the mic. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, and all those crazy places on the internet. Keep those 5-star reviews coming. We love seeing them on the iTunes. It's so great. You go over there on the iTunes, put in for a 5-star review, and we just love them, man. I just sit and cry when I weep when I see them, and I go, "Thank you, people love you." You know, we've seen podcasts where they buy like all the reviews, and they'll have like 20 episodes and 500 reviews. And we don't do that. So please, for the love of God, go give us a review. We have an amazing gentleman on the show who joins us today. He's written a really cool book with a really cool title that I like, and I may be a part of the cult. It is called How to Be a Better Procrastinator. This is part of his Super Achiever series. Patrick Sanaghan is on the book with us, or on the podcast today with us, on his book that came out May 23rd, 2023. We're going to be talking to him, and he is the president of the Sanaghan Group that plays in the higher education space and nonprofit sector. His focus is on leadership development, leadership transitions, and building great teams. He's the author or co-author of around 12 different books and 50 published articles. Welcome to the show, Patrick. How are you?
Really good, Chris. Good to be here.
Good to have you as well. Give us your .com so people can find you on the interwebs, please.
Sure. It's the Sanaghan Group, SANAGHAN, one word, SanaghanGroup.com. And that'll take you to a website with a lot of good information.
There you go. So you've written 12 different books and 50 different articles. Awesome sauce. And so this is your latest book. Give us, why'd you decide to write this one?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was on the road about 175 days a year for 20 years. It sounds like I work as hard as you do. And then COVID hit, and I found myself not traveling as much and had a lot more time on my hands than I ever imagined. And I was sitting in my office, and I had 4 books of articles and papers and, cutouts of the topic of procrastination, because I used to be a pretty bad procrastinator. I still procrastinate on a couple things, but I said to myself, well, listen, I've learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes, and I'm better at managing my procrastination. I put together a book, and that's what I've done, and it's a very practical, very accessible, very sensible book.
There you go. So you've taken and put together the book. Give us a 30,000 overview of what's inside and how we can all be better procrastinators.
The book is written for procrastinators.
Uh-huh.
And so you can start anywhere in the book. The last chapter has 10 lessons. There's a one on procrastination hacks. There's another one. There's one about the research. Some people are interested in doing the research, the psychological research on procrastination. Mm-hmm. So you can open the book, in the first 5-6 pages, you'll get 4 or 5 strategies on how to handle or manage your procrastination. But you can start anywhere.
There you go. And so is it kind of a play on words? I mean, it does say in the byline, over 101 strategies to help you manage your procrastination habit. Who are these procrastinator people, and why do they always procrastinate?
Well, about 20 to 25% of the adult population in this country are chronic procrastinators. It's a lifestyle. So that's tens of millions of people. And there's a good chance you either know somebody or work with somebody that really got procrastination as a bad habit. And it costs procrastinators in their emotional health, like in stress, anxiety, and overwhelm. They put things off they know they shouldn't do, but they still
Mhm.
do it. And this cycle just continues over and over and over again, and they pay a price for it. They
There
pay
you
a big.
go. I like how you say it's a lifestyle. It sounds like I've joined a cult or something. I'm in the
Right.
procrastinator cult. But why is it a lifestyle? Is it? Is this some sort of? Is there something that causes this
Yeah.
behavior? Were we dropped as children or something? Is
Oh
this why
no, no, it wasn't that.
was it? Is this a DNA thing where I don't know? I inherited something from my parents.
No, there's no research that shows it's genetic in nature. What
Mm.
it is really is there's usually a task to do that you don't want to do.
Ah.
It's something noxious or aggravating or overwhelming. And what happens is our feelings start saying, oh my God, I can't do this. I'm getting stressed. I'm getting anxiety. And the minute you step away from doing the task, and that's the key, you step away from doing the task. I'm not doing that right now. Oh, all those emotions just disappear. All those,
Ah.
frustration, anxiety. And that's the hook. Because I walk away. Now, intellectually, I might say, oh, I still got to do that. But that's intellectually. But emotionally, I feel relief and no stress. And that's what keeps it going. That's what keeps it
Huh.
going.
So, do we need to go back to a logical response, or well, you have several different ways to deal with this. So, tease us out some of the ways that we can utilize being a
Yeah.
better procrastinator.
So
I
how is
suppose.
that? I'm
Go ahead.
sorry.
I was going to say, I suppose identifying that we have that problem is the first step.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that's the first step. Ask your friends; they will tell you right away, right? Because you don't show up on time, you don't do this. You say, "Yeah, I'm sick today." They'll tell you right away, or your spouse, or your partner, and so you get some feedback. But how this kind of started for me was I was writing a dissertation 30 odd years ago, and I wasn't writing it; I was reading it,
Mm.
right? Which is a nice, sophisticated form of procrastination. I kept on researching, researching, and my board chair said, "Buddy, you got to start writing this thing, or you're out of here." And I got in a 1 year extension, and he would meet with me and say, "Pat, you got to start writing." And what I did is it was one of the smartest things I've done in my life. I asked some colleagues who had already finished their dissertation. I said, "How the
Mm.
heck did you do it?" And they all had these little strategies that I never even thought about. And the
Mm.
three that I adopted were this, and I think there are three core ones that people can kind of hear it and get it. First one is to make your progress visible somehow. If you've read 5 pages, written 5 pages, cleaned out of the corner of the garage, painted one side of the house, make your progress visible somehow. And what I do in my life is I have an agenda every day with
Mm.
about 6 things on it. We'll talk a little bit about that. And every time I do something, I have a big black marker and I score it out so I can see it from a distance that I've accomplished something. And that's what I mean by making your progress visible. The second,
I really like this because I have one of those task lists on my computer.
yep,
And number one, I never turn it on, but it's on my phone too. I mean, if there's something like really important I got to do that day, like a birthday or something, it'll
yeah,
ping me. And I have my appointments on my calendar. That's different. But I have this task thing, and I was like, I'm going to do these tasks. But I like this yellow pen idea. I really
it,
do.
it's very simple. It's very
Yeah,
visual.
and you
And I'm
get to see it and go, because I
absolutely
always, even if I do a task that's on my computer task list, eh, eh,
right. It
I
doesn't
never
feel. It
I
doesn't
never
feel like
cross.
you accomplished it.
But I like this because I'm like, I accomplished some stuff today. And then the problem I have is I'll think of something I need to do, like a task, and I'll be like, I need to put that in the computer task list, or maybe I'm driving or something, or maybe I'm just I don't know, I might be playing a video game or doing editing on the
Right.
thing, and then I'm like, okay, I got to do this, and then you turn on the phone, and you're like, oh, something's on fire in New York City, and in
Yep,
politics, and you're like, oh, I better read that first before I put that task in. And so
yep,
I like this. I'm going to get me a yellow pad today. You have sold me on
absolutely.
this. I'm going to get a
Yes.
yellow pad today and set it right on the thing, and then I got to find a pen, which I think there's
Yeah,
some
what
around here.
having a pen's good. Sometimes you're just talking to the smartphone, Evernote, or remember
I've
the mic.
tried that. You know what happens to that stuff?
It goes on
Same
the
thing that
computer.
happens to the computer.
Yeah, I'm old fashioned. I do a lot of paper stuff.
I like it. I like it.
It's
I'm
made me
doing
very
it
good,
because
good,
then
good.
it
That's
sits
good.
right there on the table, and I'll have to look at that pad.
Yep. Here's another one I use. I use work in about 30-minute chunks, and your lifestyle seems to be a little bit different. I have a little control over the structure. I used to be able to
Mhm.
work an hour at a time when I was younger. Can't do that anymore. So now I do 30-minute chunks, and I get post-its, right? 10 or
Mhm.
12 post-its, and each one represents a 30-minute work chunk, and I
Mhm.
put it on a wall, a whiteboard across from my desk. And when I do my 30 minutes, I stand up, and someone taught me this. It's unbelievable. I go and I wrinkle up one of those post-its and throw it in the trash.
And you're like, winning.
It feels like you hit a home run or a great swing in a golf ball.
I
And what
love it.
you can see the post-its get less and less and less. Your motivation gets more and more and more. So that's another technique you can use. That's really, for me, is very, very powerful. The other thing I wanted to mention is exactly you got to write stuff down because our heads are not storage mechanisms, right?
Yeah.
They're thinking mechanisms. And the more you can get in the discipline of just writing it down on a post-it or a piece of paper, that's just really good. I don't use computers for this kind of work, and I work in a very, high intense environment like you do, but everything's paper for me, and that's what I like.
There you go. And that was the problem I found years ago. I used to have really kind of high anxiety ADHD, and I would lay in bed at night thinking about what work I needed to do the next morning, and I would drive myself crazy because I wouldn't go to sleep, and then I wouldn't be able to
Yep.
function well the next morning. And what I didn't realize was it was my brain constantly reminding me of stuff. I think I saw
Right.
someone like,
Right.
well, your brain's trying to rejigger your mind so that you can
Absolutely.
remember, and that's why it's repeating everything because it knows you're probably going to forget because you're an idiot. And so I took and started writing stuff down,
Yep.
and that made all the difference because then I didn't have to think about it anymore. I'm like,
Yeah, it
wow, my
does.
mind's
Yeah.
clear. I can
Yep.
go to take a nap.
Absolutely. The other thing I already kind of talked about, the chewable chunks, is a lot of people get caught into, I got to sit down and just punch this thing out. And
Hmm.
chewable chunks is do it in 10-minute increments. That's all you have to do is 10 minutes at a time over a couple of hours. You'll get a lot done. So you don't have to sit down and grind yourself because procrastinators will not do that. Chewable chunks is really a way to go. And then the third thing I learned from that dissertation thing, and I resisted it, Chris, tremendously, was rewards work. And I said to my colleagues, "Do I need rewards? Shouldn't I be more mature than that?" And they said, "What are you nuts? Rewards are really effective." And every one of them had what they called reward maps. So if they finished a chapter or finished a section, they would do something really special for themselves, and it motivated them tremendously. So those three things:
A
making
reward
progress visible, rewards map, rewards work, and then
reward map. Wow, I've never heard of that term. That's
yeah,
pretty brilliant.
that's
I
pretty
like
big.
that.
And you have to have a variety. You just don't say, I'll sip a beer after every 30 minutes, right? It could be a latte,
Yeah,
it could be a walk with a friend, it could be reading a mystery. What's
yeah.
really dangerous is go on social media for that 10-minute break in between. Because like you said, you start reading about China and flowers and gorillas, and 3 hours later, you say, boy, did I learn anything? And so you got to really stay away from social media.
There you go. You don't That's not a reward, people. That's a punishment, actually.
Yeah.
But I love this. The reward map whiteboards.
Yep.
And you can create, they actually sell whiteboards that you can pre-buy that has a reward chart on looks like Pinterest. I Googled that. But I
Okay.
like this idea. I like where there's steps to the reward because trying to be accountable and stuff is just extraordinary. But I love this. This is brilliant.
Yep. Rewards work. And I said, I resisted it, but they all said, don't be silly. It really does work because you look forward to it.
Yeah,
So,
because you've got something at the end of the goal. You're not just slaving away going, all right, got to do
absolutely.
this thing you're not really excited to do. And just go do it or else, it's like Mikey, they're just like, just do it. And you're just like, I don't
Do it.
want to do it.
I don't want to do it. That's true. A lot of people don't want to do it. So you got to figure out what can I do to get started. And that's the
Yeah,
hardest part for procrastinators is
yeah.
getting started. So you got to make starting easy as you can.
Well, I like this. Well, I'll be like, hey, if you do this, you can go get a good burger and fries or something.
There you go.
You know,
That'll work. Now
there you
you
go.
don't have a 2-minute task for that, right? But you
Yeah,
could do a 30-minute or 45-minute task and say, okay, the burger's coming with fries and the
yeah.
milkshake. Absolutely will work.
Maybe or have a summation. Like if you do all 6 of these things today, you got a burger tonight or something like that.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
should be
that would
good.
be probably good because you don't want to have a burger every other
2
hour. So
minutes, that might not
it's
work out
something
good.
something to
Yeah.
look forward to.
Or a shot of whiskey for that matter,
Yeah, if you
because
like
you'll be
alcohol,
you'll be pretty messed up by the end of the day.
yeah, but you could do it at the end of the day. You could treat
There
yourself
you
to
go.
a glass of
Yeah,
whiskey or
there you
a
go.
glass of wine or a latte or whatever it is.
There you go, and celebrate yourself. No, I love this, and this is a better way because I have a procrastination problem, and we talked in the green room about. I did a joke with you about how the scientific term for my procrastination is just being a lazy bastard. Um, But you had some scientific knowledge on what the difference is between someone who's lazy and someone who's a
Yeah.
procrastinator. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's a great differentiator, Chris, because a lot of people think that procrastinators are lazy, and most of them are not.
Hmm.
Procrastinators suffer a lot of anxiety, a lot of guilt, a lot of stress. Lazy people don't have those emotions. They couldn't care less. And I said to you in the green room, my buddy is a very talented guy,
Uh-huh.
and he has never lost a minute of sleep because he didn't do something. He just says, "Oh, we'll get to it tomorrow.
Look
No
at
problem."
it.
And he's so that's the differentiator. They really don't. They don't have those kinds of negative emotions that we have. I like to be lazy,
I
but
might
haven't
I,
figured that out.
I might fall into that category, the lazy. Then I'm not a procrastinator. I'm lazy, but at least now I know what I is.
Yeah,
Knowing what
that's
I
that's
is, I am what I am. Knowing
right.
what I am,
Right.
kind of helps. So there you go. Um, oh man, wow. Yeah, I have a bad habit of procrastinating what I need to do, and then pulling the whole college test, last minute, do it all, get it all done, and that could be one of those challenges that I need to work on.
That's a
Um,
that's a great piece of information because most of the research on procrastination, real rigorous scientific research, is
mhm.
done with college students
Oh, really? Well,
because
that's
you got 15 semester 15 weeks in the semester. Sometimes it's 10 in different campuses, and you can
mhm,
track progress. And what they found about 90% of the time is the professor or the faculty member says, "Okay, you need to finish these 3 papers by the end of the semester," and nothing happens for about for the first 14 weeks, and then week 15 they go, "Oh my lord," and they start working, and they get stressed out, smoking cigarettes, drinking too much, doing all-nighters, and they finally get it done, and usually their grades suffer because they didn't get a chance to do the quality control or edit it very well. And
yeah.
some research shows you can suffer a whole grade. So if you want to get an A and you do things at the last minute, you're probably going to end up with a B.
There you go. And you talk about how billions and billions of dollars are wasted in basically people procrastinating and procrastinating companies as well, I suppose.
Absolutely. There was a study in 2002 that $500 million of income tax, right, late payments, goes
Hmm.
to the IRS because of people like me and you.
Oh wow.
Right? I believe the tax code is designed for procrastinators because it can get overwhelming very quickly, and they keep on putting it off and putting it off. And I was a younger guy, about 25, 27. I used to pay penalties even after I got, an extension, and it cost me financially. Credit card
Yeah.
payments late,
No.
not to the doctor because I can do it next week. Getting colonoscopies next year,
Yes, sir.
and so you can hurt your health and your wealth.
That's true, and there's probably a lot of people that do that,
Yes,
where they screw themselves up pretty freaking bad. I might be one of those people that you put your health off and you don't take care of your health, and you should go in for regular checkups. And
yep,
I just go in whenever like a body part falls off.
right,
Just
right.
'cause
If you're
I'm
bleeding,
like,
right, right,
I'm
right.
like, oh, that looks like I'm gonna have to sew that back on. I don't have the sew kit, but
You go to the doctor,
doesn't look
right?
like the duct tape's gonna work this time for getting that duct taped back on.
Yep.
So, there you go. And these are great, over 101 strategies. So what made you wanna write this book on procrastination? Why was this a thing for you?
Yeah, most of the books I've written over the years, I was a former school teacher and principal,
Mhm,
and at heart, I'm a teacher, and try to make people's lives a little bit easier. And I deal with a lot of senior leaders in higher education. I've done stuff at Google and Apple and some of those fancy places too, General Electric.
mhm.
And these very high-powered people, a lot of times you get to know them a little bit, and they realize they put off decision making, which is another form of procrastination, until they have more information and more data and more analysis.
Uh-huh.
And I realized that's a form of procrastination, just like my reading my dissertation is. A lot of senior leaders will delay and delay and delay when they kind of know in their heart or their instincts, I got to cut bait here and move things forward. So it became a kind of a fascinating thing to listen to them and say, here's some strategies that you can do to lessen your procrastination.
There you go. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the yellow pad for like from day to day. There's stuff that really needs to get done, and that I need to do today. It's like the need to do stuff. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's like you have to get this done today. There's just and sometimes I'll put that off and be like, oh, I'll do that in a few hours. And then I've got my task list on the computer. I'm looking at it now. I need to figure out how to make this thing so that it auto loads whenever I load my computer. I think it's Microsoft Task or the Windows Task. And the problem is I never open it. I
Right.
never do. And that's one of the problems. So I don't really look at them. And about the only time I look at it if I go, oh, I need to add a task to this, and then I go in and I'm like, hey, look at all these stuff
Get
I'm
all these
supposed
things,
to
you
be
get
doing.
overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But real quick advice on that. And for years, I used to do 10 things a day. I don't know where I got that notion, but a lot of professionals that quote do that. The top 10, the top 10, the top 10. And I would get to like 7 and maybe 8, which is a lot. And I would feel like
Yeah.
a failure. I didn't get to 9 and 10. And I'm talking to
Oh,
a
wow.
colleague of mine and saying, I just feel frustrated. He says, why would you have 10 things to do, important things to do every day? I said, well, to have that? And he said, I only do 5. And he was a lot more successful than I was. I said, you only do 5? He says, Pat, cut it in half. Cut it in half. And I was reluctant to do it, but I tried it because, he's a smart guy, very
Yeah.
successful. And if you do 5 pretty important things a day, you're world class. And the other things, and what happens sometimes is if you do 5 or 6 and you don't get the number 6, then you add it to the list, and then you have 7 tomorrow, and the next day you have 8 or 9. That's not the way to do it. You have to discipline and say the 5 things I need to do today, and possibly a 6th. It's a game changer. It's a game changer.
Definitely. I like this. You're gonna get me more organized with this book and everything,
Hopefully,
because
yeah.
this is hopefully. So I'm gonna try not to say, well, I'm gonna get that book and read it tomorrow.
Right. But if you
Don't do
just
that.
do one thing, that's the key. One of the things about procrastinators is we're over aspirational, and we hear a bunch of ideas and say, oh, we're going to try this and this and this and this. If you do one thing, if you do the yellow sheet of paper with your agenda, that's a home run. That's a home run.
I think it will be, and I like it because it'll sit here on my desk. Because I get spacey, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And start reading social media. We're on social media. It's part of the way we market the business.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
really easy to go on there, and you're like, what's going on in Zimbabwe? And
Right.
you're like, and you're down this wormhole, and then like an hour later, you're like, oh, I've been looking at my phone for an hour.
Yep.
TikTok's the worst for that.
Yep.
So there you go. These are pretty insightful. Tell us about your journey, and let's get a plug in for some of your other books. I know you've done some books on leadership and some other things as well.
Yeah, I've done some work on presidential transitions. It's something I have some expertise in higher education.
Really?
How do you get a new leader coming in and making sure he or she really is connected to the people and the culture, understand the history. And it goes way beyond logistics. You really got to design processes to make sure that they get known. People want to know who the leader is quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is people don't tend about leaving. We don't like ending. So the person who's leaving sometimes just kind of quietly ekes out, and that's not good. I mean, if you're a president of an institution, you want to make sure the leaving part is elevated and the work is very very honored. So I've done 3 or 4 books on presidential transitions. I've done some work on high performing teams.
Mm-hmm.
I just finished the book on creativity, and this is a great title, by the way. I think it is, Chris. Is Climbing Bubbles: How to Increase Your Creative IQ. We just finished that book.
Oh, really? And is that coming out soon?
It's going to come out soon. Yes, yeah, it'll come out next week or 2. So it's a great. And once again, a very practical, doable. You can read a couple of pages and say, oh, that's one way I can enhance my creativity, because a lot of us don't think we're very creative, and we're all very creative. You're very creative in your profession, to say the least.
We try. Let's have you back for that too, by the way. Let's schedule it. I like the concept of climbing bubbles.
Yeah.
It feels like what I do every day, trying to climb.
Well, a friend of mine said that, and it just caught my attention. I said, man, how can you climb bubbles? Well, that's what creativity is all about. So I gave her credit in the book, obviously, but that's another thing about listen to other people, learn from other people. Procrastinators are not very good at learning from other people. So ask people for help. Most people will help you out. Especially if you go to paint the house, you never painted your house before. Talk to the guy next door who's painting his house. How'd it go? What do I do? Do I need to get a lamp? I mean, all those kinds of things. It'll leverage your time and get rid of the frictions that can get you in the way.
There you go. It's pretty freaking awesome, man. I love this concept. When you do you do coaching to help people overcome their issues?
Yeah, I do. I select a few of people who are really kind of motivated to change, because a lot of times it's a career. A lot of times if you're a procrastinator, you're a VP and you want to be a president, or whatever the titles are, a VP and you want to be a principal. A lot of times procrastination will keep you from doing that. And that's where I'd like to be able to help people and not criticize them. A lot of times, the self-criticism that procrastinators beat themselves up with doesn't work, and we know that from a research point of view. Being kinder to yourself kind of works. I don't want to sound like a touchy-feely kind of person, but beating yourself up doesn't help. Being kind to yourself, saying, "Hey, I got 5 things done today," that's a victory, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being kinder is good. There's one
Definitely.
thing that enabled me. One of the things is that okay if I just share this? Like I still
Please
procrastinate.
do. Yeah.
My income tax returns, I hate my income tax returns like everyone does, I'm sure, but
Mm-hmm.
I find it very, very difficult. And so I came across this concept called temptation bundling. And it's very evocative. Temptation bundling is when you take a noxious task like your income tax and you marry it or connect it to something that you like to do. So if you don't want to do some exercise, you might exercise with a friend. Or you don't want to clean out the garage, but you might listen to the sports station. You don't want to iron all the clothes, so you watch a movie while you're doing it. You bundle the temptation with what you don't want to do, and it'll move you forward. And how I do it is I like sports a lot, especially football. And I'll get all my notes, and I'll do my income tax. I'm going to organize it over about a week period of time. It takes me a lot longer, but I enjoy the experience. I say, "Oh, look at that passer! The Eagles are looking pretty good this year. I love it," and I get done. And the key for procrastinators is not worrying about the time frame, is completing. And if you complete it, you got a big victory. We put these deadlines in our heads. You chase deadlines all your life, and we're not very good at identifying realistic deadlines.
There you go. How do I know if I'm a procrastinator? How many people are chronic procrastinators?
About 25% of the adult population in this country, and it's cross-cultural. You could drop us in China, Nigeria, Brazil, and they're doing the same thing that we're doing. We're procrastinating. So
So
there's
it's not
no
a cultural thing or,
cultural thing.
people in a certain country doing this.
Yeah, not exactly. Yeah, you go there and visit them and see what they're doing. No, it's across the world. People procrastinate about the same amount of population.
There you go. And this is the same reason people fail with most of their New Year's resolutions.
Yeah, great point. The research is 92% of us fail by the end of January, and there's 2 reasons for this that are really important for people. We're way too aspirational. Like I said, a couple of years ago, my doctor, I said, "Oh, I want to lose 20 pounds in January," and he knows me really well. He said, "Wait, you ridiculous? It took you a year to gain 20 pounds. You're not going to lose 20 pounds." He said, "Let's go for 1 pound a week." And I said, "Oh, 1 pound a week ain't much." He said, "In 3 months, you will see a big difference." And he was exactly right. So we have way too many goals, right? And then somehow magically by the end of January, we're going to accomplish all these things. And so the research shows us have more time. Give yourself more time. Like he said, over 3 months, a pound a week. And I actually lost 15 pounds. So I was very pleased with that.
Oh, there you go.
Be realistic, right? Cut down your goals and give yourself more time. And that'll help. That'll help anyone out. I mean, that'll help anyone out. Because like I said, 92% of us don't get their resolutions. Then we beat ourselves up for it.
Yeah, it's true. We're very bad that way. What is something you call it the planning fallacy? What is that?
Oh, that's great. That's by a guy named Daniel Kahneman, who's a very famous Nobel Prize winner in economics. A brilliant, brilliant guy. Now, he wrote a lot of stuff, but this is the one thing I took away from him. And it's the same things that we've been talking about, is that Kahneman won a Nobel Prize for this kind of theory. And the theory is it will always take longer, always. And he was part of a project he thought would be done in the summer, and it took 7 years. And he's a research scientist. He said, "We got to figure this out." He says, "Always take longer, and it will always be harder." So if you have those 2 things when you take on a project, you got to realize up front. So if it's going to be harder, you better have rewards set up for yourself. You better have chewable chunks set up for yourself. You better have temptation bundling set up for yourself, because it is going to be harder. Something meaningful. I'm not talking about taking out the garbage, but something meaningful, like going for an MBA or cleaning out the garage or, raising a good family. I mean, all those things take time, and it's a lot of effort and a lot of patience on the part of the parents.
They do. I like you mentioned chewing the chunks. One of my things that I always have when I'm doing a giant task is to think of, okay, this is huge. And I feel like you mentioned before, the overwhelmingness of it.
Absolutely.
And I go, okay, you've got an elephant in front of you. Okay. Let's start eating the elephant one bite at a time. So just let's grab a bite, start chewing. And I've kind of habitualized myself to a while that I know that, okay, if we start down the road, we start chewing that thing, one day that elephant's going to be gone.
What's the next step? What's not the whole elephant, right? You figure this out. one chunk at a time, and over time, that elephant will disappear. It'll take a long time, but it'll be done. It's great.
It'll be done.
That's a great strategy.
It is. The problem is just trying to get, to that first bunch of bites where you're just like, you finally sit down with yourself and you go, you do that Faustian bargain or whatever.
Yep.
Where you're like, is it Faustian bargain? Where
Yeah.
you're like, okay, well, let's get her done.
Let's get her done. Yeah, starting is the hardest part. I mentioned that, and just starting is important. What we know, if you start a task, about 50% of the time you'll continue.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good odds. 50%, that's a pretty good shot. If it doesn't happen, then you come back the next day, you take another little bite.
Take another bite and just keep pushing towards that effort. And these are real important aspects. People can use these in all sorts of different things to
Absolutely.
get stuff done. But I fell in love, probably it appeals to me, the yellow pad thing. I've always loved legal yellow pads. I used to do this thing I talked about in my book, that the way I used to innovate was I would go on trips and I would take a legal yellow pad with me because I come from the old world. And looking at the blank slate of the yellow pad would make me always want to fill it in. And so I would put down ideas and I just start writing down whatever. And I put down, here's an idea. And once I started writing down ideas, it would fill. And it was also a great way for me to kind of have that blank slate to look at something I wanted to innovate from a different angle, like start over, basically. It's like there's nothing on the page. Let's just start over with this idea or process in my business, and let's just start over. Like, why, what goes here, what goes in one place. And sometimes I would, look at something I innovated over and over again years before, and I'd just be like, why did I do it this way? And I'd write it down and review it, and then I'd be like, oh, this is why I did it this way, because the other ways suck. So this actually is the best way right now. And so I would do that, and then, I love the concept of yellow pad. I would always keep yellow pads with me whenever I wanted to be an idea man. But now I need to keep one around. It sounds like for tasks.
Try it and see if it works for you. But I love the idea of you got a blank. It's a blank slate, right? You're fresh, new, and what are the possibilities? And then your brain's smart; it'll fill things in there. But yeah,
and that whole thing of being able to cross it out and then rip one off for the day and throw it away, and you're like
$1 billion. And I learned that Post-it thing from a guy who's in government, who's a secretary reported to the governor in Pennsylvania. And he had this whiteboard with all these Post-its. And I said, well, Michael, what is that? And he explained the process to me. And the minute I heard it, I said, I'm going to use this. And I've used it for about 15 years.
Setting up the risk reward. I would imagine identifying, though, that you're having an emotional response to something you should do logically. It might be, one of the ways to deal with that. You're like, I'm being a bit of an emotional little baby about this. Grow up. I don't know. Does that help at all?
Well, what did they call it? Surfing your emotions.
Surfing emotions.
Yeah, because sometimes let's say you're in a social setting and you get upset because someone said something stupid or off record.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to start yelling and screaming at somebody, even though that's what you feel like, right? So
no, you just throw something at them across the table.
Right.
No, don't do that, folks. I'm just kidding.
But there's times we can control our emotions because it's appropriate, and so our emotions don't have to drive us. And that's one of the things procrastinators, they feel these emotions, and if they can do surfing by just watching it, and one of the biggest things they can do is learn to meditate for about 5 or 10 minutes, not for 30 minutes or an hour, but for 5 or 10 minutes. And you begin to see that your thoughts are always passing by and you're not reacting to them. You don't have to react to the stress or anxiety. Now, that takes some skill and some practice, but that's one of the biggest levers around procrastination.
There you go. And that's one of the biggest challenges you have. Any final thoughts as we go out and pitch on the book you want to throw at people?
Yeah, 2 things. Sometimes it's really helpful for you to have an accountability partner. And that's someone you have a lot of respect for, not just a buddy you drink a few beers with, but someone who, if you gave them your word, it'd be a strong commitment. And you wouldn't want to come, I wouldn't want to come to Chris and say, Chris, I said I was going to do this, but I didn't do it. Because I'd be very concerned you'd be, feel less about me. So an accountability partner is really a powerful little lever. And the last thing I'll share, Chris, if we have time, is Mark Twain said years ago, and I think it's a big misdirection, you've got 2 frogs, eat the big one first. And for procrastinators, they'll never eat the big one first. Won't happen. But the little one, right? It's doable. cut it in little slices, make it a social activity with some friends, have your reward maps, all those kinds of little activities. And all of a sudden I get done this small frog or small task. I feel successful. I'm motivated. And now I have some strategies to tackle the bigger task. So sometimes go for the small one, get her done with some of these little tools and techniques, and then you can tackle the big task.
There you go. I love it. So give people the final pitch. Tell people where to buy the book and your .com.
Yeah, it's the book is on Amazon. How to Be a Better Procrastinator. And the name of my company is my last name, the Sanaghan, SANAGHAN Group.com. And there's a lot of good books and articles and papers and all that kind of stuff on there. Thank you very much, Chris, for your time. This is fun.
This has been a lot of fun, and you've given me some tools to deal with my lazy self and the people with procrastination. And don't procrastinate putting off buying the book, folks. And guess what?
Right.
It's almost the holiday season. So the best thing to do is give this away as a gift to maybe some of the people, if you're that wife who's always trying to get the husband to do the honeydews all the time. And, he's, busy playing video games or whatever it is. Have him get him the book so you get more of those honeydews done. I can see like a whole bunch of
absolutely. I had a colleague of mine that mailed a copy of the book to his partner. Anonymously. The partner opens it up and sees the book and says, what is this all about? So
he sent it to him anonymously.
Yeah, it was kind of a quiet, anonymous feedback. And so he kind of said, and he read the book. So thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Holiday season's coming up, folks. Order it for your family. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We certainly appreciate it. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, and Chris Voss1 on the tickety-tockety. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time.